All right. Good day, everybody. Hope everyone's having a good one out there. So, what are we getting up to today? Well, today we're going to be checking out the P450 MDN EQ, which is a collaboration between Pulsar Modular and engineer and producer Marc Daniel-Nelson. This plugin was released along with the P450 MDN sidecar, which, if you haven't checked out, I highly recommend doing. It's a stunning sounding mix bus processing plugin. I did a super nerdy deep dive on it, which I'll link in here. You can check it out if you haven't already. But yeah, out of the P450, they gave us the standalone P450 EQ, which has got some different options on it, mainly just the filter points, and the bias is doing something a little bit different here. So what is the 450? Well, the 450 is an emulation of an API 5500 stereo equalizer. API, obviously an iconic brand in our industry, and as I said in the 455 video, if I had to pick one analog color to work with for the rest of the time, it would be API. Just beautiful sounding gear. It's very musical. It's very punchy. You can really drive it if you want to. You can really have it open and clean if you want to. It just does it all. So yeah, this is their emulation of it, and it's a beautiful sounding plugin. I've had the opportunity to be on the beta for both of these plugins, so I've been using them for a few months now, and yeah, I'm just incredibly impressed. Let's just dive into it. I think Ziad's preface really kind of sums this up the best in the manual. There's an inherent magic in the analog realm where manipulating dials always results in a musical interpretation of the audio passing through it. This stands in stark contrast to the limitations faced by digital EQs, from missed nuances to glassy highs and boomy lows. The P450 MDN EQ challenges and ultimately solves fundamental issues with the digital auditory experience and offers the essence of a high-end, punchy analog, op-amp-driven stereo equalizer. And I think Ziad's right. I think they've really created something stunning in the box here that really feels like you're pushing and using analog gear. It just sounds incredible. What do we have on the plugin? It's a pretty straightforward plugin. Obviously, it's an EQ plugin, not too many crazy bells and whistles. But yeah, what separates the API 5500 from a typical 550 series EQ is the gain multiplier. Typical 550 EQs are 2 dBs cut and boost. No finite control in there, just stepped 2 dBs. What the gain multiplier on this allows for us is we can have that or quarter that, which is really interesting. And then also really interesting that you can do with this plugin with the A/B compare is that you can actually set up the same gain amounts but at different multipliers, and you actually get slightly different curves, which is incredible. And there's a demonstration of that in the P455 video. If you're interested, you can go check that out. It's marked in the chapters. But yeah, what do we got on this thing? Well, we have some great metering. We have some RMS and peak options, which you can just select like this on there if you want. You have the bias, which controls the internal line amp to run hot or run cool. And we have the filter banks, and the filter banks are not emulating anything API. They're custom jobs from Pulsar Modular, developed and designed and tuned by Pulsar Modular. These are different frequency points that are available in the P455. I think the 15K and the 8K are the only ones that are similar. No, just the 15K. On our left, obviously, we have our fixed frequency points, and then on our right, we have our gain. And on the high frequency and low frequency, we have the option of bells or shelves. And obviously, we have the gain multiplier, which we already covered. We have some A/B compare, and if you're working at sample rates of 88.2 or above, you actually have the option to turn the oversample on and off. If you notice on this version, I don't have that option, and that's because I'm working at 48K. But if you're working at higher sample rates, you have the option to engage or disengage the oversample. And then yeah, we have some theme selection for the UI, so you have new and old skins, and then you have the option of resizing, which is awesome. And then yeah, user guide available in here, theme settings, all that kind of stuff. License status is in the menu. So how are we gonna check this thing out? Well, I just have a small mix lined up. I pulled some drums, bass, and a couple of guitars out of a kind of a modern pop country tune, and we're just gonna have a listen to the mix flat, and then we're gonna have a listen to it processed, and then we'll have a listen to it with the filters in, with the filters out, and then we'll listen to it at its different bias settings So we'll have pushed and pulled, so open and driven. So the first thing I did with this plugin when I got it, obviously played around with it for a bit, and then I stacked it up against the UAD Vision Channel Strip plugin. If you've been on the channel before, you'll know that I think very highly of UAD. I think they're an incredible sonic benchmark for in-the-box processing, and the Vision Channel Strip has a 550 series EQ in it, so I wanted to see how these two compared. So I've got a bit of an A/B worked up with and without filters, so we'll check that out at the end and have a quick listen, and you'll get to hear why I think the 450 just sounds really incredible. It's a stunning emulation. Okay, here we go. This is just a flat mix right out of production. The 450. Back to the flat. I mean, just with the EQ alone, we have a way more polished mix. And not just frequency-wise, but dynamically, also it feels different. I think that's one of the things I'm just really blown away with this plugin is how it handles the transients, what's happening dynamically. Lovely punch, and there's just this bounce that's happening when we go to this, regardless of what's happening frequency-wise. It just feels like those transients are hitting some circuits, and they're just kind of soaking up a little bit in a really nice way. We're getting like some really nice compression, a little bit of rounding of the transients. But obviously, frequency-wise, a lot is happening too. Bottom ends, so punchy, so deep. Like, that's the thing that I'm also very impressed with this plugin, is the bottom end seems really rooted to the ground. The top end is really pleasing. It's very musical sounding, it's very silky, and it's soft, but not in any kind of blurry way. Very classy. And obviously, the other thing I love about this is the image shift. So obviously vertically going lower, going higher, but also just love the front to back of this plugin and what it's doing. This just feels like it's right. It's just right in front of your face. Now we have some front to back separation. Feels like we're into it a little bit. And let's have a listen to it with the filters in. So this is no filters. We're going to be going to 450 is with filters. Here we go. So no filters. With filters. So bottom end feels super big in the no filters version. We have lots of extension on up top. When we go to the filters version, it just feels a little bit more cleaned up, a little bit more focused into the mid-range. Bottom end just feels a little bit cleaner. And yeah, just a little bit more focus into the mid-range overall. The no filter version just, sounds fantastic. Maybe less balanced. The kick drums maybe a little bit too loud. Let's have a look at some of the individual elements. Check those out. So, our drums. Just all that mid-range information coming back in, and it just kind of sounds flat. Again, I just can't get over what it does to the transients. Kick drum. So 30 hertz high pass, 15K low pass, and yeah, we're really pushing the kick drum. So we've got 12 dBs at 10K, we've got 9 dBs at 50, both on the bells. We're sucking out all the 800, and we're not using the low mid band at all. Just becomes a real nice polished kick drum. Lots of punch, lots of nice air. If you wanted to add a little bit more attack to it, fly in some 1K. And that's the great thing about this, is you can really push it and it's really forgiving, which is very much analog EQ. Analog EQ is incredible for that. Similar to the 455, if you do want to bypass any of the bands, you just command option on Mac. I'm sorry, I don't know what it is on Windows. But yeah, you can bypass any of the bands you want, which is a great handy feature. All right, snare drum. So here we've got the high pass at 80, low pass at 15K. We've got some 10K, 6 dBs there. We're adding some 3K. We're taking out some 500, and we're cranking the bottom end. Kind of feels like we could even go more. Cleans it up. Whole image stretches top to bottom. Spectrum stretches. There's a lot of hi-hat in this snare. And even though we're boosting a bunch of 10K, it's still really, really pleasant. Nothing harsh about it. It's not getting abrasive at all. Overhead. So we got a shelf here. We're doing some 2.5K, 4 dBs there. we're sucking out some 3K, so some of that kind of brashness. Just ugly stuff in the drums, but you can crank it in this, and it's, not frequencies that I want to crank, but not jarring. We're taking out some 700, and we're boosting 6 dBs at 50 with a shelf. We've got the high pass at 30 there. Sounds great, sounds classy, makes those overheads sound real classy. All right, bass. So we got the high pass at 30, low pass at 8K. We're cranking with a shelf some 2.5K, 4 dBs there. We're cranking 6 dBs at 1K. We're taking out a little bit of 150, and we are boosting with the shelf at 30. Sounds great. Again, extends the whole thing. Got a little bit more articulation in the mid-range. And yeah, the bias, like, feels like the bass could be compressed a little bit harder. Just drive it a little bit more. Let's do a quick AB here. See how that bias just kind of tightened it all up really nicely and gave us a little bit more focus. Just a little bit more saturation. A little more control. No bias. No drive. So, and just beautiful sounding. All right, guitars. And I used the same settings on the guitars. So we have some high pass at 80, some low pass at 8K. We're pushing some 7K with the shelf. We're pushing some 700, and we're pushing some 30 again. So I'm not pushing these really hard. Just a little bit better. A little more bottom end, a little more extension in the top, and a little more articulation. So yeah, all of that gives us a pretty polished sound and punchy sound and musical sound, which is the sound of API. Let's check out these bias settings. So we're going to go from our filtered, we're going to be just using the version with filters now. And we're going to switch to bias set to -18, which is half of its amount. minus 18. Just feels a little bit more open. There's a little more space in there. Things aren't being pushed as hard. A little bit more relaxed. Bias at 0, it mix feels a little bit more glued. Minus 18. Just a little bit more space around everything. Just not driven as hard. Okay, let's go to the minus 36. We'll go back to the 0. So just even more relaxed. Mix actually feels like it's become a little bit lazy almost. Zero bias. And just not as pushed. A little bit more dynamics. A little less focus. At the minus 36. The same with the minus 18. Just varying degrees of that. Okay, back to our 0 bias. So let's go to plus 18 drive. Plus 18. Back to 0. Plus 18. So just a little bit more focus. Everything comes a little closer to us. Image kind of stands up a little bit more. We get a little bit more. Everything just kind of firms up a little bit. Saturates up a little bit more. We get a little bit more punch. A little bit more rounding on the transients. See now the 450 at 0 bias feels more open and relaxed. Not as congested. Go to the plus 18. I just love how everything just becomes a little bit more in focus. The image, especially like those guitars, just kind of feel like they pop out to the sides. Kick drum soaks up really nicely. Okay, let's go to the plus 36. So all the way, all the drive. So that's plus 36. Back to 0. So here, I mean, we're all the way pinned, and it's feeling like that a little bit. We're getting a little bit soft, a little bit overdriven. A little bit too much is getting soaked up now. It's a little mushy. Folding in on itself just a little bit. See, lots of clear transients, lots of punch. That's a 0, and then when we go to the plus 36, we lose some of that dynamics. Still got lots of punch, lots of that vibe, but it's just soaking up just a little bit too much. And you gotta remember, these are just plus 18 and plus 36. I mean, there's a world in between there. There's a world in between 0 and plus 18 or 0 and minus 18. I just chose these settings so that it would be a very clear distinction between them, because there's a lot of subtlety in that bias knob, and you really gotta listen. But just at 0, it's just already just has a lot of mojo in it, and just a lot of life and a lot of bounce. Just really feels alive. And that's what I really like about this EQ, is you can really use it not only for tonal shaping, but for dynamic shaping, because you can really push the EQ and you can really play with that bias, and that'll change your dynamics, which is really great. Okay, so let's get into our AB portion of this, which is going to be comparing the Pulsar Modular 450 to the API Vision channel strip. So this is a two-part comparison. The first one will be no filters, so we don't have the filters engaged, and then the next one we will have the filters engaged. And that's where this AB gets a little bit different, because the filters aren't emulating the same thing. The UAD is emulating the filters from the Vision channel strip, and the 450 from Pulsar Modular is custom filters. So that's where the AB, we're really not comparing apples to apples at that point. But with the no filters in, we're comparing 550 series EQs. I mean, the 5500 is just two 550s stuck together, and then we get the gain multiplier. And even though the comparison breaks down a little bit when we get into the filters, I think it's always interesting to do ABs, even if they're not the same kind of EQ, just because it helps train your ear, helps inform you on what you like and what you don't like about plugins or about the sonics of things. And also, I find it helps develop a vocabulary around sonics and music, which I think is incredibly important, because talking about sound and talking about music is really complicated. So match settings, match gain, all that kind of stuff. First one, we're going to be listening no filters, just EQ moves. Okay, here we go. So the 450. UAD. Back to the 450. UAD. So similar vibes, similar API vibes, but lots of differences. The 450, the bottom, way more extension, We have a way more pronounced bottom. UAD actually feels like a little bit cleaner down there to me. 450 feels a little bit, we have a little bit more low mid information, a little cloudier in there. Lots of punch and lots of extension down low. The UAD, the transients feel a little clearer to me, and the mid-range feels a little bit clearer, a little bit closer. And like with all UA stuff, I always say this, the image feels really firm. When we go to the 450 just feels alive to me. And while the transients maybe aren't as clear, they're a little bit more rounded, a little bit more punchy in a way that I really like. Feels a little compressed to me, a little bit more compressed. But I do really like how articulated the mid-range is here on the UAD. .450 is a little bit more pushed back, almost kind of scoopy feeling in there. I'd kind of say like the 600 to 3K kind of range. And maybe that's why it's got great front to back dimension for me, because I do feel like the UAD does feel flatter. But a little bit more articulate. Yeah, the 450 just feels alive to me. So there's space around everything. There's a real bounce to it. And I just love, it just feels like the dynamics are being soaked up, just hitting something. The top end of the 450 feels really classy and smooth. Really extended, quite polished. The top end on the UAD just feels a little less extended and a little softer, kind of grainier. Pulsar, the 450's just got this great extension in class, which I'm not really hearing on the UAD. But what the UAD does have is that mid-range. A little more bite to it. Okay, so we're gonna check out the filtered versions now, which, yeah, is where kind of the apples to apples comparison falls apart here. So the 450 we're on. The UAD. the UAD. So the UAD here starts to lose some power to me and some of that punch because of the filters. And I know this isn't an apples to apples comparison, but what I really do love about the Pulsar filters is that we maintain all of that power with those filter points because of these resonant peak kind of type shelves that are on there. We still feel really rooted to the bottom end. Doesn't feel like we're losing it. Whereas on the UAD, it really feels like we're losing that. Back to the no filters. Yeah, I really do like how clear the transients are in the UAD and the mid-range articulation, but I just love the life of the 450. And I do actually really like that kind of the rounding of the transients. It just feels like you're pushing into something. Okay, well, I think that's gonna do it for me. So let's just recap here. What were we checking out? Well, we were checking out the P450 MDN EQ from Pulsar Modular and engineer and producer Marc Daniel-Nelson. And it's an emulation of an API 5500 stereo EQ with some custom filters. Yeah, I think this thing sounds amazing. It sounds alive. It feels like you're pushing into analog gear. I love how it handles the dynamics of things. You can really play with the transients and not just with the drive, but with the EQ, because you can really push the EQ and really shape this. Very, very forgiving at extreme settings. I highly recommend checking it out, having a play around with it. As I said, I've been using it for a couple of months and done a bunch of mixes with it and absolutely in love with it. It's just a beautiful sounding EQ and just a vibe I haven't felt in the box before. Just kind of that ability to really dig into an EQ, which you can do in the analog world. You can do less so in the digital domain. Things I'd love to see on the plugin. Obviously, the compare option in Pro Tools isn't great, so I always love AB and undo. I know other DAW users get that. I would love to see that. I would love an auto gain option, but if you read the manual, you'll see that Ziad thinks very differently than I do on the auto gain option. But I do find auto gain great because it does allow you to be aggressive. You can be aggressive with this EQ anyways, but with auto gain available, you can do it in context a little bit more. But yeah, as far as a straight up EQ in the box goes, I think this thing sounds unbelievable. Highly, highly recommend checking it out. And if you do, let me know your thoughts. Let me know what you think of it. I've used this thing in mixing and in mastering. Works great in both. I haven't had any production sessions where I've had the ability to try this out yet, but I look forward to trying it out there as well, just because the oversample is only 49 samples, very efficient. You can use it in a production session, no problem. The 450, it's a W. I love it. It sounds great. So yeah, I think that's gonna do it for me. Thanks for tuning in. If you're enjoying the content, please hit like or subscribe. All of your support really, really helps. We're very close to getting to 1,000 subscribers, which on YouTube means I can monetize the channel, and monetization will mean that I can be able to put more into the channel, which would be incredible. Love doing this. So yeah, thanks for tuning in, and I hope you have a great night. Okay, take care.